Hey, welcome to my thoughts on mixed bathing in another dimension, the hue of the unlimited bath. If it wasn't obvious, this is a light novel of the ham isekai variety. I don't really like ham stuff, but my biases largely come from hearsay about trashy ham launch. Like isekai, just because there's a lot of trash, that doesn't mean there aren't any diamonds. If I let my biases get ahead of me, I might miss stories that are genuinely fun and interesting. So, did this light novel change my perception of ham stories after all? It's only one series. That's asking for a lot from one representative. But I can say that this was actually an interesting experience. I honestly want to compare it to the light novel Did You Just Kidnap the Wrong Royal? Which is a parody of Alice in Wonderland. I did a short video talking about my thoughts on Wrong Royal if you're interested in hearing that. But before I compare them, I should tell you a short synopsis of the first novel in the series. Summary. Dario Hojo is a high school junior, recently summoned into another world. He's tasked with interrupting the resurrection of a terrible demon lord that would just straight up recently go on beating the demon lord's ass. To aid his quest is something called a gift, which is accessible only to other worlders, and his special gift is called the Unlimited Bath. That's right, as long as he has the MP available, he can create a luxurious bath wherever and whenever he wants. Clean water that can run hot or cold, self-refilling shampoo, conditioner, and hydrating body soap are just a few of its perks. How the hell does this possibly aid in battle is his conundrum. Much of the novel is focused on him carving out his own survival in this new world. He learns cleric magic to be support, he finds a teammate that'll be a strong offense, and struggles to figure out a way to earn money on the road. As for the harem aspect of the series, I'm gonna predict that Toya will journey through this world meeting groups of women who fall for simple but honest charms. This novel introduces us to two groups of women. One group features a high schooler, a cleric, and a little kid, who are sincerely embarking on their quest and the demon lord. The other is a noble, cast out of her family along with a friend, who are curiously researching an old fairy tale and possibly uncovering a shocking secret of the demon lord's origin? I don't want to get too into spoiler territory just yet, but each of these women have full personalities. They have their own goals, worries, and strengths, and Toya gets to know those parts of them intimately. However, because Toya himself is a high schooler and young ages are a popular trope, you might not be into the sexualization of girls under 18. I also didn't really like it, and that's why I will be continuing the series. There's even some lolicon in here. That'll about do it for the summary portion. Although I said I would be continuing the series, and that it's only one representative of the harem genre, it has surprisingly great storytelling. Compare! Anyways, I want to compare Did You Just Get the Wrong Royal, which I'll be nicknaming Wrong Royal, and Mixed Bathing, because both stories obviously know their content is ridiculous. One is taking on the laughable task of making its average main character a stud to a huge cast of superior women, while the other describes itself as a parody, gives all its characters disagreeable or pitiful personalities, and makes its jokes off of violence and bullying. I had no expectations going into either, yet they were pleasantly wild rides. The writing styles of both series are nice to read. The authors make the appropriate choices for their respective story. For instance, Wrong Royal chooses the third-person perspective, cashing in on the entire cast's reactions. Everyone's a target. The readers are confined to a particular bully or victim's perspective. Meanwhile, Mixed Bathing seems to handle its large cast of women by setting them off into groups. A protagonist will meet one group, get to know them intimately, and then there's a logical reason why they part ways. At least for the first novel. Additionally, no characters are super hateable. Even Wrong Royal's Alice is fun to read because of the chaos she wreaks, but it's also fun to see her be OP and trash the obstacles. And for Mixed Bathing, although he retains the pervertedness of most harem protagonists, Toya is still a genuinely thoughtful and nice guy who doesn't have the selfish ego of a jerk, but works hard to treat his love interests considerately. Your love interests are also stellar too. None of those stereotypes that can get boring and annoying fast, but well thought out women who, like I said before, have their own agenda and find themselves slowly falling for Toya's honesty. But, most of all, both stories are easy to get caught up in. As someone easygoing and can read almost anything, the structure and organization of the stories are easy to follow, yet keeps just enough hidden that the surprises are surprising, the jokes are jokey, and the romances are romances. It's fun meeting new characters. In short, despite how ridiculous Mixed Bathing may seem, it's actually written pretty well. Like, there's actual effort put in this thing, and it pays off. But let me be more specific, and also spoilery. I don't know, she don't know me. I don't want to make this video very long, so I'll talk about one love interest and use her as an example for why this series writing is pretty great. Haruno Shiranome is the first love interest Toya meets, a high schooler who was summoned to another world just like him. I think the author not only designs a group, but a leader for that group too, as most of Toya's interactions are with Shiranome. Later, most of its interactions are also with the leader of the second group too. By the way, aside from her and Toya, there's actually a whole cast of other worlders. In fact, there's a kind of competition/rivalry set up between them all, but that's not super important for this first novel, except to emphasize the feeling that these two kids are kinda on their own. But every development follows a problem, right? This is Shinanoma's problem. She is the only otherworlder who hasn't awakened her gift. Weeks pass with no progress, and she is frustrated. Keep in mind that awakening is supposed to occur within a week. Toya was no exception. And as a mere passerby, he sympathizes with Shinanome. Toya has a gift, useless in combat, and needs to work that much harder to ensure his own survival in a strange world. Even if he could someday return to Japan, wouldn't happen straight away. Therefore, he concludes, he has to learn about this world and become strong enough to protect himself. This is an important aspect of his character. Toya always sympathizes and understands, or strives to understand, other situations, whether they're a side character or a love interest. He doesn't write their problems off as, "Oh, but you're so lucky to be this and this. Look at me, he's so unlucky. You just suck it up." He's not a joke, and since most of the novel is from his perspective, I don't get tired or fed up with him. Instead, Toya understands that he really is pint-sized next to the other characters. Whenever he interacts with his love interests, he always plays catch-up to his perverted side. He moralizes his actions and feelings, accepting that, yeah, he's totally attracted to them, but preferring to treat them like people. Of course, as anyone would, he secretly hopes to snag a chance at mating with them. So, when it comes to Shinanome, who comes from a prestigious family, goes to a stellar high school, and is a knockout beauty, he minds his own business. What could he do anyways? Yet, when Shinanoma's friend and mentor, the cleric Sada, approaches Toya, he might have a chance after all. This is Sada's request. Let Shinanome bathe in his unlimited bath, thereby exposing her to a gift, and maybe awakening her own. But there's another problem that works great for the perverted Toya. The bath requires he be inside to function. He's elated, of course, but this also means Shinanome has to deal with a complete stranger who could easily take advantage of her. Toya hasn't yet upgraded his gift either, making it quite a small bath. When Toya considers that, he has to confirm with Shinanome first. Finding his own perversion, he convinces himself. If he keeps calm now, he might strike an even better chance later. That and he doesn't want to be hated. The novel likes to confirm repeatedly that Toya likes consensual bathing, and I do appreciate that. Toya's just a normal guy who wants to be liked by a pretty woman. Me too, man. Me too. Shinanome can guess his impure thoughts, but she can still see the sincerity of his words. When Toya continues to prioritize her feelings, she folds, and starts to see him in a positive light. This is their first meeting. It's also the start of their friendship, and their romance. From then on, the two start to talk more often, just casually. There isn't a big change in their relationship, aside from calling each other by their first names. Instead of Shinanome, it's Haruno, and instead of Fujo, it's Toya. The second domino in the story falls when one of the other heroes is almost killed by an assassin. The details aren't important, but the main lesson is this. Death is very real. And it's very real that neither Toya nor Haruno are able to protect themselves. At this point, they have no combat abilities or allies. This leads to Haruno being desperate enough now to ask Toya for that bath. He, of course, is uncomfortable with her being uncomfortable, but also knows she must be that desperate. So he throws himself into action. He ties a towel over his eyes and promises not to peek or do anything. Haruno, full of doubt, agrees. It's another test of Toya's endurance. He remains behind the curtain that separates the changing room and the bathing area. Basically, he can hear her getting unchanged, taking a shower, and stepping into the bath. His imagination runs so wild that he starts reciting his magic lessons like a Buddhist sutra. His resilience is another positive point on Haruno's list. Finally, the next morning, her gift awakens. She's so excited, she wishes to tell him first. From then on, the two begin to spend more time together. They purchase armor, go on a cafe date, and give Haruno's new member, a little girl named Riam, her first bath. Toyo also recounts how they talk more, both professionally as heroes, but also casually about their days and worries. The romance here is peak. The conversations these two have about armor and underwear are funny and casual, showing how close the two are. I mean, the fact that Haruno is so comfortable speaking about women's lingerie speaks volumes. Even if it's just expressing confusion as to how a city-state, with the technology of ancient Rome, can have underwear more advanced than modern-day stuff. It's because the pioneer of women's underwear was a perverted man. I do appreciate the author cashing in on an absurd concept, but wow. Wow. And then eventually, it's their final night together before Toyo leaves the next day. And on that night, Haruno tells him what her gift is. Called Unlimited Reflection, she is immune to all abilities and items which use MP. In other words, she is immune to all magic, including healing. An incredible advantage with an incredible cost. Toyo's astonished that she tells him. Oh wait, so some context. All the heroes keep the gift secret if they can. This is to prevent demons from coming up with counter strategies. But Haruno trusts Toya, and since he revealed his own gift to her, even if he thought it didn't matter, she wants to do the same. Finally, knowing this is the last time he might see her, Toyo just comes out with it. He confesses that he wants to bathe with her. Bro, is this a parody of The Moon is Beautiful? When did I love you become I want to be with you? Haruno was surprised, but not shocked. Rather, she had guessed from the time she got Toyo staring at her and Sarah, but she doesn't doubt his feelings. If anything, she likes him back too. They share the most intimate conversation yet. Haruno confesses that she wants to keep relying on Toya. The conversations had given her temporary relief, but she knows she'll only grow more insecure. If she can't rely on herself, she'll never be confident and strong. Her decision to be self-reliant parallels Toyo's earlier decision to be strong too. So they make a deal to part ways and meet again someday. And to see that deal, they kiss. And thus, this is Haruno and Toyo's romance. Two weak people who fall in love and give each other the determination to leave, so that they may grow up and become strong individuals on their own. One day, they'll meet again and take a bath with each other. I can't say how the other groups will go, but the second group of women Toyo meets also has a similar plot. He spends most of his time with the leader of the group, and together they learn each other's strengths, weaknesses, and goals before relying on each other to resolve a big problem. It's a strong plot. Extra bits. Aside from the great chemistry between Toya and his love interest, there were also other neat writing bits. For one, the world building in this world is pretty detailed and focused. It seems the author decided to model this world off of old city-states like Athens. Many of the buildings are made of marble, the baths are all large public ones like in ancient Rome, and the city-states are given names like Jupiter, like they're based off the Roman gods. The author even keeps a timeline of sorts. The first person summoned from another world has a statue, and it depicts him wearing a mix of samurai and Roman armor. Toyo figures that if that person was summoned here 500 years ago, then 500 years ago in Japan would have been during the Warring States period. The dude was a samurai. Oh, and there's probably a deep mystery surrounding the demons and the events that the demon lord was feeling. Based on the second half of the novel, there's a lot of plot. Lots of the plot. For two, the action scenes are actually pretty great. Toyo spends the first half kind of being inert since he's stuck in the city-state, but there's a surprisingly great pace in the second half once he leaves. I don't want to spoil this bit, but the author is just as good writing the isekai bit of the series as the other harem poet. For three, well, I actually don't think this is very neat, but it also speaks to the harshness of this other world. There is something called a river market, which operates similarly to a slave market. People sell themselves for a contract period and are forced to do work in potentially hostile environments, regardless of their preference or health. In return, they receive money or some other pay. The novel says, rather than being slaves, ravers are more like indigent servants, but in the end, ravers still hope to be bought by a good master. The fact that this market exists shows just how harsh the world is, and that there are plenty of situations that force someone to sell themselves, whether it be poverty, death forgiveness, or a natural disaster sweeping the whole village. Rulitora is a lizard man who sold himself to pay for water. A reservoir was damaged by a monster back in the desert he calls home, and his people are at risk of death by dehydration. Toyo buys Rulitora for his compatibility, and then sets out to help using his unlimited bath. I could say more, but I don't feel like it. Am I a ham fan? The answer is still no. Again, even if this novel had hit it out of the park, it's only one representative. But I guess I am interested in understanding the common ham formula. Also, sex might sell, but it is not a selling point for me. I was a great fan of the romance, but didn't find the bathing or gawking sequences all that entertaining, like I did for the cooking in the light novel. Can't find cooking in another world with my absurd skill. And yes, I made a video on the first novel of that series if you're interested. It's a slice of life cooking isekai. In summary, if you're okay with lewd content of slightly underage characters and love harem isekai, I would definitely recommend this. And if you're not a fan of harems, I would suggest looking elsewhere. Alright, that's my video on mixed bathing in another world, the hero of the unlimited bath. Bye.